All right, hello. I just wanted to take a quick moment to welcome you back from spring break and give you a quick crash course in terms of what's out there for your week 10 learning module. We are now in the double digits, folks, so hopefully that's super exciting. And like I mentioned, this is where we move into the final unit of the Omnivore's Dilemma, which is all about hunting and gathering. So for a lot of folks, this is usually one of their favorite topics to cover because it is something that we've evolved from. We evolved as hunters and gatherers. And so to bring that idea kind of full circle in terms of moving back to some of those original thoughts and things is kind of exciting to think about. So you've got some questions here associated with the readings in terms of what's out there for chapter 15 in the Forager. And then you're introduced to Alfredo. He is a forager, or Angelo, sorry. You're introduced to Angelo, who is a forager that Michael Pollan introduces you to within that chapter 15 learning material. So I have a little podcast for you to go out and listen to, largely centered around hunting and gathering and some of his thoughts. And then you do have a quiz, a Kitchen Sisters quiz that will come back and assess you on that information based in that podcast. So you do want to make sure that you take the time to review all of that. And then your Let's Connect this week, we're going to shift back to those library badges. So this is your third library badge for the week. It's called the Found It badge. And so this is your Let's Connect for this week. Real quickly, I did want to just spend some time talking about your signature assignment because this is Unit 10 or Learning Module 10 is where we start talking about completing that signature assignment. So we're about 6 weeks away from your signature assignment and submitting that. And so it's a good time to start thinking about, and we've been talking about this for a few for the last several weeks, we've been talking about the signature assignment and some of the things that go into making up that signature assignment. And so I want to just spend a quick moment talking about your signature assignment and what's out there specifically that you need to complete for that. And so you will be submitting 3 recipes. And let me just go out and show you a sample recipe card. I'll make this available for you in the coming weeks. But you will be submitting 3 different recipes that represent your food culture. And what I want to say is don't get caught up in food culture meaning something along the lines of kind of the example that I gave in terms of, my family is originally from Germany. One of the things that we love to eat at Thanksgiving is sauerkraut and turkey. And so that's like something that represents my food culture. Certainly that can be an element of food culture, but remember earlier in the semester we talked also about food culture meaning things like, what's that dish that you enjoy preparing for your family on a weeknight? What's the dish that when you go to a potluck, everybody says, please bring that. It's so yummy. What is something that maybe you cook that reminds you of someone? My grandma used to make meatloaf and mashed potatoes. So sometimes when I make meatloaf and mashed potatoes, it reminds me of my grandma. When I can pickles, it reminds me of my great grandma because she always had pickles at every meal. Whenever we sat down, there was always a dish of pickles at the table. And so when she passed away, I wanted the pickle dish. That was the only thing I wanted from my grandma because I had such fond food culture memories of that experience. And so think about food culture definitely more in that broader sense rather than trying to narrow it down to, my family came from Sweden and so we love Swedish meatballs, or my family came from Korea and we love kimchi. Certainly that can be an element and you may decide to share a recipe like that. But if you're also I'm from the United States and my family is a hodgepodge of different food cultures, that's fantastic. think about those things that you enjoy as a family. So this is a sample recipe card. And so essentially what you're going to do is you're going to open, the easiest thing to do is to open up PowerPoint and create 3 separate slides. And on those 3 slides, you're going to choose a recipe that represents your food culture. And so each card will represent a different recipe. And that card needs to have your title of your recipe, the ingredients for that recipe, the necessary instructions on how to create that certain recipe, and then why this recipe represents your food culture. So a statement about that specific recipe. And then finally a photo of your recipe. My preference is that you do make it, right? That's part of this class, is to source food, cook, and then enjoy the pleasures of the table. So I would love to see a photo of you, not necessarily you physically, but like that's a photo that I took of one of my absolute favorite summer salads that we get from the garden. And so it would be awesome to see you actually prepare those meals and then take pictures of them as part of your recipe card. So we'll continue throughout the next 4 or 5 weeks talking about this, but I did want to give you a crash course because you do want to start thinking about what those 3 recipes are going to be, because in week 11 we will further explore and you will actually have to say, like, these are the 3 recipes that I'm considering for the class cookbook. So don't start working on them yet. You don't have to do that yet, but definitely start thinking about what is my food culture? What are those 3 recipes that I might want to share with my peers? So with that, happy week 10. Holy moly, like I said, we're in double digits. Start thinking about your signature assignment. We are so close, folks. It's almost April, and it'll be May before we know it, and the semester will be over. So as always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please reach out. Otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic week and have been enjoying this unusually warm late March weather.